Joe Pag Show. Great radio stations across the land. Newsmax TV. My pleasure to have you along for the ride. I want to give you those tweets that I was talking about. We'll have Jeff Addicott on in a second. But a few other tweets that came out yesterday as we were finding out news about the terrorist attack at Ohio State University. I'm not even sure who this is from, Phil somebody. And I'm not sure if this is actually from the TV station Channel 10 in Columbus, but the headline is "No Sympathy for Ohio. Dear Ohio, not just OSU, the entire state. Wake up and realize that elections matter. You continue to elect policymakers who are in the back pocket of the NRA and NSSF, the gun manufacturing industry lobby. Don't cry to the rest of the nation when your children, family, and friends lay dead in their classrooms, churches, movie theaters, shopping malls, and offices. Gun violence is a real problem in America, and elections have consequences. You have no one to blame but yourselves." So there you go. Here's an idiot, this Phil Addy guy, whoever this is, this idiot who is blaming the gun lobby and, in fact, is taking some sort of joy in the fact that because Ohio voted for Trump, that Ohio had a terrorist attack brought upon them. That's how disgusting this guy is. Of course, he was wrong. There was no gun involved. Shannon Watts, who is some sort of a mother's group about gun violence or something. She's an anti-gun activist, tweeted this: "For school shooting victims, it's not too soon to discuss our nation's lax gun laws. It's too late." And then she puts Ohio State University. Again, the only gun used yesterday was by the good guy to kill the bad guy who was wielding a gun, a knife that is, and was driving a car that he rammed into people. And Julia DeCaro, whoever this is where we are. Instead of common sense gun control, we get run, hide, fight, which is one of the tweets that went out in the OSU network yesterday to get these people out of harm's way when the terrorist attack was happening. Again, there's an idiot that made an assumption it was a gun. Now, it was reported that it was a gunman yesterday. It was called active shooter when it was being reported from Ohio State University. It turned out later that we found out it was a knife. This is why I say it doesn't matter. A car is very deadly. Many would say more deadly than a person with a gun, especially if there's a big crowd that you're ramming the car into. Nobody's talking about banning cars. Knives can kill. Nobody's talking about banning knives. Rocks can kill. Nobody wants to ban rocks or hammers or sickles. You get my point? But if there's a gun involved, suddenly it's always bad, it's always negative, and we need the central government to control us more. I want to bring in Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey Addicott. He's the director for the Center for Terrorism Law at St. Mary's University. And, Jeff, it's always a pleasure. How are you?
Hey, Joe, I'm doing great.
So you heard these tweets from these anti-gun doofuses after the Ohio State University terrorist attack from yesterday. Turns out the guy had a car and a knife. But the anti-gun lobby, without even any concern about somebody's loved one being involved in this terrorist attack or being on the victim end of the terrorism attack, are you surprised by that, number one? And number two, do we just have to get used to that as the new normal, that people will always assume it's a gun and always attack the gun industry?
Well, this is why Donald Trump won the election, because we've got these people running around that are disoriented to reality. The headline should read, "Gun saves people."
Yeah. Right.
I mean, that's what happened. It's an inanimate object. You know, the Hutus and the Tutsis rather, in the last decade, and during the Clinton administration, they killed 700,000 people with machetes, hatchets, hammers, clubs. It's not the gun. It's not the weapon.
In Rwanda, right? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly. In Africa, and so it's not the weapon. It's the person that's using the weapon. That's the problem. They don't care about stats. If you show them stats that say that states that adopt gun rights laws where people can carry concealed, crime rate goes down. I mean, those are facts. They don't want to be bothered by the facts because they're very emotional people, as people on the far left are. They're very emotional, and they're not deep thinkers, quite frankly.
It's Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey Addicott, Radical Islam Why. Make sure you go and get his book. So we're taking a look at this thing, and what we know so far is he came here from Somalia a couple of years ago. He's a permanent resident. Somehow we handed him permanent residency. There is speculation that we handed him an education that his school was paid for, that we handed him some other stuff that people like you and I don't get. This is the problem, is it not? Does this not highlight exactly why what Donald Trump said about stopping immigration from refugees, from war-torn, mostly radical Islamic areas makes sense? I mean, this is a prime example, is it not?
It is, and I don't know where this idea comes from that somehow because people have wars somewhere around the world that it's our responsibility to let them come into our shores. I mean, remember World War II? We had millions and millions and millions of displaced Europeans. We didn't bring them in here.
Right.
We provided help over there where they are, and that's the solution. You provide assistance in place, set up safe zones, whatever you got to do if you want to help people. That's where you concentrate the effort because they want to go back to their own culture, I would hope. And then if some people do want to come here, we have a selective process. We screen them because right now there's no way to screen people from Somalia. There's no system where you can check who they are, what they believe, and what they don't believe. And again, the third point is, the Statue of Liberty says, bring us you're tired, you're hungry, you're poor.
Yeah.
Guess what, folks? We got enough tired, hungry, and poor already with the welfare rolls expanding daily and people on subsidies and the government dole. We really don't need any more. Thank you. That position's filled.
It's Radical Islam Why. That's the name of the book, and go and grab that. It's Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey Addicott, Director for Center for Terrorism Law at St. Mary's University. What's interesting about this situation is this guy, I guess, was interviewed a couple of years ago by the school newspaper at Ohio State University, and he said that he was worried about how people would feel about him praying at school or something. Jeff, is that enough of an indicator to take a closer look at a guy when he's he just got here? He's already talking about how people are somehow going to criticize or look down upon his religion. Is that a guy that we should worry about the risk of becoming radicalized?
Yeah, I mean, that's a red flag right there because, again, disorientation to reality. You got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
This country provides the most religious freedom and tolerance of any nation on the face of the earth. Now, I'm not as hard-hearted as I sound, but I believe we should take care of our own people first. The poor we have amongst us right here in Appalachia, in the inner cities, we've got a lot of folks right here that are American citizens that we need to look after first. And if we have anything left over, well, perhaps we could look after people in the rest of the world. I mean, I'm a nationalist. I'm a very proud nationalist.
Me too.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's that's a red flag. And then his other indications on Facebook that he was you got to stop attacking ISIS or we're going to get really mad. It's just a disorientation to reality. This fellow is a jihadi, and he obviously is using the tools that are being used by many other jihadis around the world. The cars. We've seen this happen in Israel. The knife attacks. We see it happen in Israel all the time. He's just taking his cues and he is following the marching orders of ISIS. Now, they're not directly controlling him, but they're inspiring him, as he admitted in his own media expressions.
All right, so it's Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey Addicott, the Director for the Center for Terrorism Law at St. Mary's University. See, Jeff, I'm trying to figure out, what's the most true, and I already know, and I think you know, but I want my listeners, I want my viewers to also hear it from you. The fact is, the left tries to pretend that Donald Trump saying we should not let anybody in who can't vet, especially not from war-torn Syria and other ISIS-controlled areas. They will make the suggestion, Hillary Clinton made the suggestion, that in fact is a recruitment tool for ISIS and Al-Qaeda and Boko Haram and Hamas and Hezbollah and all these idiots. That's what they want us to believe. But in reality, it sounds to me like Ohio State University and other publicly funded universities and places of education or government buildings building a prayer room for Muslims specifically, or a place to wash your feet, at the university. It appears to me that that's opening the door to radicalization. And the reason I say that is, all right, you gave us an inch, now we want a foot or two. Am I on the right track here? Are we not? We're capitulating a little bit, and they want us to capitulate the whole way.
Well, I'm all for making moderate or reasonable accommodations for people with religious preferences, but you're right. I mean, we have to draw the line somewhere. And again, all religious preferences subordinate themselves to our Bill of Rights and our Constitution. That's the real heartburn I have because many of these individuals come from Sharia-based law countries, and the International Court of Human Rights, which is the number one international court in the world, they ruled in the Rafi case that Sharia law is incompatible with freedom, and that's not a conservative court, folks. That's a far left court. court.
Yeah.
And if they say it, then, obviously they're catching on to something. So I would screen people very thoroughly about your beliefs about Sharia law vis-a-vis our Bill of Rights and our Constitution, because, again, there's no right to come into this country. And that's what I find, most bizarre about people that say that, well, you're a hater if you want to slow down on people coming into the country. No, I just want to take care of the people here first.
Right.
Take care of family first.
I guess what people don't understand is that we have a culture, we have a value system. It's a Judeo-Christian foundation of our country. Even if you don't believe in Judaism or in Christianity, it's still, that's the basis, the Magna Carta, the Ten Commandments. We can go through why our laws are what our laws are and why our country is the way that it is. And yes, they broke away from England because they didn't want to be Anglican anymore. So we do have religious freedom. But I mean, religious freedom to an extent. When you come here, you realize that the society is built on a certain set of mores and values. If I go to Saudi Arabia, I get it. I know what I'm stepping into. If I go to Pakistan, the same thing. If I go to Indonesia, it's the same thing. If you come here, accept our value system, acclimate to society, and yeah, we'll make you a prayer room at OSU, but it's not because we want you to take over the country and ram people with a car and stab people in the name of Allah. We're doing it because, as you said, we make moderate moves and we give people the ability to freely worship in even state-run schools. I mean, at some point, don't we need to, and again, maybe the result of this election did this, don't we need to put our feet down and say, welcome to our country, this is how we do things here. Does that work for you? Because if not, you can go back home.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not willing to assimilate into our Bill of Rights, our Anglo-Saxon culture, basically that's what this country is founded on. And if you want to embrace, for example, Sharia law, there's a no welcome sign that we should place on the door because you're destroying the very pillars that made us a great nation. And again, those principles were taken out of the Bible. Capitalism, God's a capitalist, thou shalt not steal. Nationalism, not internationalism. Privacy, the marriage issue, all these things are taken straight out of biblical principles, and they make for a healthy nation.
We talked about this many, many times, and I've got time for one more question. So what do? You've got a kid who's at a university far away from home. You've got somebody who's at work at a factory. You got somebody who's going to a Christmas party like San Bernardino, and these radicalized Islamic idiots are popping up with guns and knives and cutting heads off and ramming people with cars. What do we do? Because we keep on saying, see something, say something, but I mean, a lot of people aren't going to because they're afraid to say something. What do we actually do? I mean, like you said, this guy on his Facebook page is going on and on about how we've got to stop bombing ISIS. I mean, does the government need to step in and ask that guy a few questions? What's the next step to stop the next idiot from doing this?
Well, if you're at your house and you've got the tub running, you just left the faucet on, the water's running, you don't take out a mop and start mopping up the floor. The first thing you do is turn off the frickin' tub.
Right.
That's what we need to do. We need to uninspire these idiots, and we do that by destroying ISIS. We need to bomb them back into the Stone Age, or I guess they're already in the Stone Age, but we need to bomb them out of existence under the rule of law, of course. We'll follow the law of war, but we need to kill them, and that's how you win, and that's how you uninspire all these people that are so inspired by ISIS. We rub them off the face of the earth as we did with the Nazis.
Radical Islam, why? His name is Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey Addicott, Director for the Center for Terrorism Law at St. Mary's University. Jeff, it's always a great pleasure, my friend.
Thanks, Joe. Merry Christmas.
All right, right back at you. Merry Christmas. All right, when we come back, your thoughts on that. A lot of people on hold to talk about Trump and the flag and much more on the Joe Pag Show. Stay here.